Good evening and welcome. I apologize for the late start, but the road conditions put a hitch in my giddy-up. That was an expression I was tasked to use at some point in a public hearing by a couple aldermen, so I've now completed that task. Good evening and welcome. This is a public hearing of the Zoning Board of Appeals of the City of Evanston. The zoning ordinance directs this body to hear applications for major variations, special uses, and appeals from decisions of the zoning administrator. Depending on the type of matter, this board will either make a final determination or send its recommendation to City Council. Would you please call the roll?
Arevalo.
Present.
Burns.
Here.
Cullen.
Here.
Gallimore.
Present.
Gingold.
Here.
McLennan. Rogers.
Present. With 6 members present, we do have a quorum. Also present tonight are Planning and Zoning Administrator Lori Pearson and Assistant City Attorney Mario Tratto. This is a formal meeting and there are rules that govern our proceedings. Most importantly, only one person speaks at a time so that all testimony may be accurately recorded. Anyone who wishes to address the board regarding any matter on the agenda will have the opportunity to do so at the appropriate time. Our procedure is to hear from staff on the documents on file and then receive testimony and other evidence from the applicant or appellant. Next, persons who wish to make a statement regarding the matter may do so at that time. Any person with a legal interest in property located within 500 feet of the subject property may present evidence, reasonably question witnesses, or seek a continuance of the hearing. When all supporting and opposing testimony and statements have been heard, the applicant or appellant will be given the opportunity for rebuttal or a closing statement. Then the board will close the record and begin deliberations. All testimony will be under oath. Although we do not apply the strict rules of evidence, please limit your testimony or statement to your personal knowledge. When you address the board, please state your name and address and sign in on the provided sheet. We are audio and video recorded. Please make sure that you are at a microphone when asking questions or making statements so that you can be properly recorded. All proceedings are subject to broadcast at a later date. Any matter not concluded at tonight's hearing will be continued to our next regularly scheduled meeting. We do have 3 items on the agenda this evening. Is the applicant for 2411 Hastings present? 605 Hinman and 517 Dempster. I don't see him, but he's the last item, so by the time we get to him, he may show up. The first matter of business we have before us is to approve our minutes from our January 27th meeting. Has everyone had an opportunity to look through them, and were there any changes, edits that needed to be made? If there were none, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I motion that we approve the minutes of the January 27th meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries 6-0, and our minutes will be approved. The first matter on our agenda this evening is the matter of 2411 Hastings, and if you would please read that into the record.
And since the variances have changed on that, I'm going to read the original and then make the revisions within that, if that's okay.
And was it noticed with those changes, or was it noticed with the original?
With the original, the variances have decreased.
Okay, thank you.
Andrew Venamore, zoning specialist, applies for major zoning relief to replace a 1.5-car detached garage with a 2-car detached garage. The applicant requests 57.8% revised to 47.4%, building lot coverage where a maximum 30% is allowed, and 55.3% revised to 44.9% currently exists. Zoning Code Section 6-8-2-7 and 77.3% impervious surface coverage, which has been revised to the existing, so where a maximum 45% is allowed. So let me do that again. And 77.3% impervious surface revised to 75%, where a maximum 45% is allowed, and 75% currently exists. Zoning Code Section 68210A. The Zoning Board of Appeals is the determining body for the case. The documents for the record include the variance application dated December 1st, 2014, standards form, zoning analysis, plat of survey dated October 20th, 2014, site plan, elevations, image of property, aerial view of property, zoning map of property, and the DAPR draft meeting minutes dated January 25th, 21st, 2015.
Thank you. If I could have anyone who may be speaking to us in the matter of 2411 Hastings Avenue be sworn at this time by raising their right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth throughout the course of these proceedings? I do. Thank you. And if you would please step up and tell us your name and address, please.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Andrew Vanamore, Venamore, 225 Oakmont Drive, Deerfield, Illinois.
Thank you. And if you would please tell us about your proposal.
Sure. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for the opportunity this evening tonight. My case is to replace an existing detached garage, a very decrepit structure. I don't know if you've had a chance to go out there. I'd like, if I could, please, Chair, to present a photo of the existing structure that will show the board. Hey, Ellen, you get that?
I am receiving a photograph of a tan 1.5 car garage. Did you take this picture, Mr. Vanamore?
The owner did.
And when was it taken? And does it accurately represent the condition of the property? Thank you. And I will mark that applicant A.
Thank you very much. So as the board members can see, as the photo goes around, the structure that's currently on the property at the moment is very decrepit, also only a car and a half in size. The proposed project will replace that structure. It's also oddly shaped. It's 24 foot deep, which is kind of unique for only a 1.5 car wide structure. So the proposal is to replace that garage with a 19 foot wide by 22 foot deep structure that was a little bit more practical in width, that will enable 2 cars to be parked in it. The reason that we've gone to the 19-foot width, as you can see from the information you've been provided, the width of the property is only 25 feet. So our goal was to limit the extent of the variations that are being proposed, and as such, the ordinance requires 2 3-foot side yards. So that has left us with 25 minus the 6 foot at a 19-foot wide structure. Still reasonably practical to make 2 cars work. Obviously, the preference would be to have it wider, but as I mentioned, based on the limitations of the lot as it currently stands, we knew that there was going to be a variation as it related to the lot coverage, and certainly didn't want to add to that by increasing the number of variations. So the compliant side yards have still enabled us to do the 2-car structure. The owners have spoken with the neighbours both to the north and south, have explained to them what is being proposed, and both were happy to see the intent to have the structure replaced. As you can see from the photo, it's in pretty decrepit state. So the variations this evening, as staff identified, we've limited them to lot coverage. There is really no opportunity to get that lot coverage figure down to anything that would be permittable as of right. While I could deal with the 2 setback issues by keeping the garage at 19 foot wide, and we were also able to eliminate the any questions that related to impervious surface by actually pulling out existing parts of the impervious surface on the lot. We were able to eliminate that potential variation because obviously we're doing a bigger structure. There's really nothing I can do about the lot coverage. It's already over pretty substantially. So the hardship, I think, as it relates to that, again, while I could eliminate the other 2 variations, the lot size is what's really driving this issue. At only 25 foot in width, it makes it very difficult to bring the lot coverage into compliance. So the project has limited that lot coverage as well by only doing a 19-foot wide structure. But as I mentioned, I really can't get around that particular element. So at a 25-foot wide lot, this is a rather small lot in that R1 zoning district. It's less than 50% of what a typical R1 lot size is at 7,200 square feet. And so that's how we've tried to approach this, is just kind of limiting what we could work with, which is the impervious coverage and the setbacks, but we can't do a heck of a lot about the lot coverage. So
Can you please clarify with respect to the impervious surface? So my understanding is that currently there's 75% impervious surface coverage.
that is an incorrect number. That was the initial number that was noticed.
Okay, so what is the current impervious surface coverage?
It's actually 60%, if I may.
Okay, so
Correct.
it's 60%, and what's allowed is 45%. So is what
Correct.
you're saying that the project now, as proposed, will actually bring the lot within compliance of the 45%?
No, and I can't do that either. That's part of the issue with, as it relates to the size of the lot. So what we've done is, obviously the garage is expanding by about 60 odd square feet. So we've eliminated, actually it's 79 square feet, but we eliminated a path as it goes up to the garage door at the moment. You can see the difference between the existing and proposed site plans. And then as it relates to the patio, I guess, at the base of the stairs at the rear of the house, we're removing another 60 square feet from there. So the idea was to, understanding that we are making it larger, is to not increase that impervious number beyond how it stands today.
And so what's the net effect? What will the impervious surface coverage be?
It's a zero-sum gain, but it will still be that number. Laura, you mentioned
60%.
60%.
So I guess the question I have maybe for Mario is, do we not then still have to consider the variation for impervious surface coverage since it's non-conforming?
But it's non-conforming now.
Right.
I mean, if we aren't
Not increasing.
increasing it, I don't know that we would have to.
That's the question.
Can I just interject a little bit? We went back and forth with staff on this because obviously I needed to be cognizant of what was going on. When I came back to them after the initial review had been done and I noticed that the numbers were way off, we sat down, went through them together, came up with the numbers that you're actually looking at right now. And the way that staff approached that question was that as long as there was no increase from the existing condition, that it was not part of the said variation process. So as long as it was kept either at the same or under the existing condition, that it didn't need to be noticed. Actually, I think it actually was noticed though in the end, right? Loosely.
I'm just
But-
trying to figure out if we're to vote on this, whether we need to cover that issue or not from a legal standpoint.
I believe not. That's something that Melissa Klotz and I have discussed. So Chairman Rogers was correct.
Great.
That question was at the end of my presentation, so I'm happy to answer any questions if the board has any more.
I have a couple of questions for the
Sure.
owner, or if you can answer them, have knowledge to answer them. When did you purchase or move into the property?
I purchased it in 1999, and then I've done two additions, one in 2001 to one in 2003.
Did the
House.
additions that you did increase the building lot coverage?
They did not. It was second. The first one was an interior model just on the first floor. The second project was a second-story addition, neither of which increased the lot coverage conditions.
And did the existing garage, was the existing garage on the property when you moved in?
Yeah, I just painted it. That's it.
Okay. So the structure is the same as when you purchased the property?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you use the garage for?
I've got one car in there at all times. I'd like to get a second one.
Do you use it for storage, or is it just
I have
cars?
just a little bit of storage at the front, but usually just for cars.
Do you own two cars?
Yeah. Yeah, my daughter's got a little CRV we were afraid wouldn't make it through the winter, so she's in there
Where do you currently park the second car?
out in front of my house.
there's street parking there available?
Yes.
Thanks.
I have a question. In the picture that you showed us of the backyard of the garage, there seemed to be a very, very large tree, and I can't tell where that is. Is that
That's
on,
more adjacent to the property, yeah, the one adjacent to the neighbour's property on the south.
If it's this one,
yes.
that's on the other, it's actually behind a fence on someone else's.
So it's on your neighbor's property? It's somewhere between the fence and their garage? Good Lord.
Yeah, it's confusing from here.
If you look at the picture, you can see a little bit of the base of the tree coming out right here.
No, I'm talking about the tree on the other side.
Yeah, you can, if you look really hard, you can
Tree on
kind
the
of.
left side.
Oh, that one is behind a fence, yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about the
It's
one on the
behind-
You and I are talking about the same
Yeah.
tree. He's talking about a different tree.
It's behind her fence, too.
So in order to qualify that, may I submit an additional?
Sure.
Yeah, I think she kind of moved the fence to save the tree, so.
So I'm receiving a second photo, which is a slightly different angle showing a bit more of the neighboring property. That would be the neighboring property to the north. Am I
Oh.
correct?
South.
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 Okay. And this picture, was this also taken by the homeowner? And approximately the same time as the first one?
Yeah,
And it accurately reflects the condition of the property?
yes.
Thank you. I will mark this applicant B.
Oh, I don't think so.
Are there additional questions from the board?
I guess the only thing I'd like to just ask the owner is you're aware that you've given up your ability to put any sort of patio, deck, anything in the backyard, right?
Right, unless it was special pervious brick, right?
It would have to be completely pervious.
Yeah,
It would have to be those stepper stones that
Right.
we referred to, something, yeah.
yes.
Okay.
We had that discussion again as we were sitting here this morning.
If there are no other questions, did anyone else want to speak to us on the matter? If not, Mr. Venamore, if you'd like to make any statements in summation?
I think that's it, Chair, thank you.
Thank you. With that, we will close the record and begin our deliberation. As mentioned, we have different numbers provided than the ones that were originally in our packet, which if I took notes correctly, and remind me if I did, is the building lot coverage we're looking at is now 44.9, or is that the 47.4?
47.4, and I should point out, it is in the packet on the first page of the memo, just it was not advertised as that. so.
Okay. General thoughts from members of the board?
So here are my thoughts, right? I appreciate the ability of the applicant to limit the number of variances. I'm a huge fan of that. And for everyone out there, it's possible to have a two-car garage that is only 19 feet wide. It doesn't have to be 20, 21, 22, or 23 feet. So I appreciate that. I also appreciate the ability to have it be net neutral, right? They're not adding any impervious surface. My concern with this, when we start having homeowners trade out patios for garages, is that the ability to enforce no patio building in the future is very, very limited. And I know that that stuff happens without permits routinely. And so that's not going through zoning lot coverage or impervious surface and that sort of stuff. So that's what gives me pause. And I'm just asking you guys, is there a way that you can think of that we can make these things make that not a problem in the future? I haven't come up with a good solution.
I mean, I think that becomes more of a question for what can we legally do, if anything, in order to notice that a patio could not be built on this property. That, I mean, it kind of ties our hands, because theoretically 10 years from now, when none of us are on this board, someone may want to put a patio, and someone on this board may feel it's a wonderful idea. So I don't know if there's anything that we even can or should do, really, other than,
But is it really different, though, from saying, let's say, like last week where we had a carport and conditioning it that can't be,
oh, I think we can condition it, definitely.
we can condition that there,
But I was understanding your question to be if someone wants to kind of circumvent, they
It's
will.
both. It's both.
I mean, we can condition that there be no additional
Variances for
variances
lot
for lot
coverage.
coverage or impervious surface on this property. But that's only as binding as if somebody wants to come back before a different board
Right.
and request it, that we can't tie the hands of a future board. But I'm fine with conditioning this particular property
Because I
for
think
this
I think
way.
it gives zoning, the neighbors potentially, the ability to have somebody enforce if a patio does get built at some point and somebody notices it, that there's an opportunity to enforce the ordinance.
I mean, again, I think we could definitely condition it, but I think that's about as much as we
Yeah.
can do.
I don't think we can either condition it that there not be a patio, it's that they can't
Right.
increase
Right,
their
right.
Right.
impervious surface coverage.
Yes, I would agree to that, right, because if they want to tear down the garage and put up a patio, that's their choice.
Or put up a pervious patio,
Right,
100%
completely pervious, yes. Yes, or if the rules of pervious change or decks change or
Right.
whatever, yeah. Okay.
Any other thoughts from this end of the board? We do have a set of standards that we must find are met in order for us to approve any requested zoning relief. And we will walk through those standards, and I think most people will be in agreement on them. Number one, the requested variation will not have a substantial adverse impact on the use, enjoyment, or property values of adjoining properties. This matter has been noticed properly, and none of the neighbors have come out and told us that they believe it would impact their property values. The fact that we are making changes, but we are trying to keep our changes to a minimum here. I don't believe will hurt property values, and the fact that we are putting a new structure in to replace what is a rather old structure that looks to be in a state of disrepair, I think will only help property values. So standard number one is met. Number two, the requested variation is in keeping with the intent of the zoning ordinance. We do know that we try to improve the housing stock as we can, as well as being able to keep the character of the neighborhoods and to be similar. Again, we're not making a major change here. And one of the other things we often do look at is the ability to move cars into off-street parking areas. And it sounds like this homeowner does have 2 cars and would be able to park both of them within this new garage, therefore removing a car from the street. So I believe standard number 2 is met. Number 3, the alleged hardship or practical difficulty is peculiar to the property. This is a substandard lot. It is 25 by 125, if I remember correctly. And the fact that the owners are looking to put basically what is the minimum size almost for a two-car garage in terms of width, and they still have barely any wiggle room from side to side on the property, I believe does make this standard met. Number 4, the property owner would suffer a particular hardship or practical difficulty as distinguished from a mere inconvenience if the strict letter of the regulations were to be carried out. Again, in looking through the changes that are being requested, the property owner has obviously made a decision that having a two-car garage is something they would like, and have actually taken steps to make sure that they have the least impact on the property by removing additional hard surface. So I believe that this standard is met. Number 5, the purpose of the variation is not based exclusively upon a desire to extract additional income from the property. This usually only comes into play if we are looking at somebody who would try to be renting a garage, which we've heard no testimony that they would be doing so, and I don't believe that there is anything that's being done here in order to make additional money. So standard number 5 is met. Number 6, the alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having an interest in the property. We heard testimony of the fact that the property owners have owned the property for since 1999, and the garage as it stands today stood there in 1999. So I believe that standard number 6 is also met. And number 7, the requested variation requires the least deviation from the applicable regulation among the feasible options identified before the ZBA. We do appreciate the fact that before this reached us, there were attempts made to try to limit the impervious surface, which is one of the things that we always discuss. And the fact that we are keeping it as a zero sum definitely does make it the least deviation necessary. So I believe standard number 7 has also been met. There was discussion, does everyone agree with my findings on standards?
Yes.
There was discussion about placing a condition on the property and upon our determination that would limit the impervious surface to never be allowed to exceed its current 60%. So I will ask if somebody making a motion wants to include that as a condition.
I'd also say, and the lot coverage is also probably maxed out at 47.4%.
That would be fine with me, so. If someone would like to make that motion.
Sure. A motion that for 2411 Hastings Avenue, ZBA 14ZMJV0154, we approve the variance for increased building lot coverage to allow for the construction of a two-car detached garage with the following conditions. The first, no future increase in impervious surface coverage beyond 60%, and lot coverage of 47.4. Is that correct? And also to be in substantial compliance with all testimony presented here today.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries by a vote of 6-0, and so the variation is approved. Good luck with your project. Thank you very much. With that, we will move on to our second case for this evening, which is for 605 Hinman Avenue, and if you would please read that into the record.
Camille Senka, architect, applies for major zoning relief to replace and expand 6 roofed stairwells with balconies, 1 open stairwell, and an 8-foot fence in the rear yard. The applicant requests a 1.9-foot north interior side yard setback, where 2.7 feet is required for roofed stairwells and balconies, yard obstructions. Zoning Code Section 6419B1. A 2.1-foot south interior side yard setback, where 2.7 feet is required for roofed stairwells and balconies, yard obstructions, Zoning Code Section 6419B1. a .45-foot rear yard setback for open stairs where 1 foot is required, zoning code section 6463B26, 58% building lot coverage where a maximum 45% is allowed, and 57.5% currently exists, zoning code section 6876, and an 8-foot-high metal fence in the rear yard on a stair landing for a total height from grade of 10 feet, where a maximum 6-foot fence height is allowed. Zoning Code Section 6467F3. The Zoning Board of Appeals is the determining body for the case. Documents included on the record include variance application dated January 5th, 2015, standards form, zoning analysis, plat of survey dated May 19, 1988, site plan dated January 2nd, 2015, elevations, image of property, aerial view of property, zoning map of property, and DAPR meeting minutes from January 21st, 2015.
Before we move on, I just had a quick question about the staff memo. The southeast interior side yard on the chart that you provided us on the second page of the memo has, never mind, I just answered my own question, so forget it. I was looking at the wrong column. With that, I will ask that anybody who may be speaking to us in this matter, please be sworn by raising their right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth throughout the course of these proceedings?
I do.
Thank you. And if you would please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Ron Sanka. I'm with the architectural firm of Gemini Associates. We're located at 4725 Northwestern Avenue, Chicago, Illinois.
Thank you, Mr. Sanka. And if you would please tell us about your proposal.
Sure. I'm here tonight representing the owner of the property at 605 Hinman. We were engaged approximately a year ago to look at replacing 7 stairs on the building that were ready to be replaced. The building is approximately 80 years old, and the existing wooden stairs are in pretty bad shape. An issue that we immediately were notified of and as well as observed were the rise and the tread of the existing stairs. All of the stairs at the building currently have a very high rise and a shallow tread. Typical IBC treads now are a 7-inch rise with an 11-inch tread. That's a very easy gate to move up and down stairs for people to go. At 605 Hinman, we have areas where we have an 8.5-inch rise and an 8-inch tread, kind of like a ship's ladder almost. So very steep stairs. These stairs themselves are located along the sides of the building, the north and the south sides of the building, as well as a stair that's in the alley to the east. Most of the residents, when they take their garbage and everything out of the building, they're using those stairwells because the main entrances are along the front of the building. It's a rather long walk to come all the way around. So those stairs get used quite a bit. And in a couple instances, people have injured themselves on these stairs because of the rise and the gate of it. They're very steep. They asked us to look at options to try and improve that. Unfortunately, the stairs themselves are somewhat landlocked by existing masonry walls that make up apartment buildings or apartment units, and it's very difficult. The only direction that I can actually move the stairs would be away from the building or towards the side yards. In doing so, our goal was to try and reach the IBC code guideline, which is the 11-inch tread and the 7-inch rise. However, we felt that it was impossible to do it given that consideration. We followed one of the older standards, which was a 10-inch tread with a 7-inch rise, and that seemed to work. However, again, it did sort of push us out. I do have one quick illustration, and it will help to understand a little bit about one particular stair to show what we're talking about. If you can see, and I can certainly hand this over to the chairman to look at, but the stairs currently are shown dotted in this plan because I want to make sure you're on microphone. As you can see, this is a section going through one of the stairwells, and you can see the existing stair is shown dashed. By improving the stairs to a 10-inch tread, we're actually pushing that stair out by 1 inch. It essentially will then begin projecting that stair past the existing building envelope. Structurally, we'll be able to support the stair, but that helps us improve it and again, makes it a much, much simpler, easier stair to navigate.
Is that drawing in the packet?
As I say, I don't think we have this
It's
one in the
not,
packet. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to take this and mark it as an exhibit. And if you want it back after we photocopy it or whatever we need to do, we can return it to you.
I think you can have it.
Okay.
That actually shows the plan of the particular
Okay.
stair that we're talking about.
All right. So I am going to mark this as applicant Exhibit A. And for the record, it is two black and white prints that are adhered to a piece of foam core, one illustrating the sort of side profile of the steps and how they project from the edge of the building. And on the opposite side, we show the facade of the building with the same step pattern there. Go ahead and continue.
Thank
please.
you. I would like to point out that the City of Evanston does allow the owner to restore the stairs in the exact condition they're in now, even though they don't comply with existing building code. Just because of the way the ordinance, it's impossible for them to try and, it would be economically infeasible for them to try and go back and reconstruct a stair that would meet code. So it's their goal is to try and improve this and make it a safer stair for the resident in the building, and quite honestly, with a much larger expense in order to accomplish that. If it pleases the board, I can probably go through then each of the four variations that we're requesting tonight and how it impacts. And I realize there's some subtle nuances to it, but all of it, in a sense, is important to achieve that comfortable stair for people to navigate up and down. I'm going to give you another board here, but if I could use this.
That illustration we have in our packet for people who may be looking for it. It's on page 2 of the staff memo. It is small, but it does show the individual stairwells.
When you're explaining, would you mind also referencing it back to your larger elevations and plans that you guys have on sheets 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6? Sure. So I can follow along, please. Thanks.
If we can just stay with that stair that I just presented now with the section, and I'm happy to bring that to the other side, which represents stairs 2N, which would be 2 north, and 6 south, which essentially would be the two, this stair here and this stair here. The request for the variation in this case is because of the stair is actually elongating, it's projecting further into the side yard that the zoning ordinance allows. Currently, where there's an allowance for an additional 3 inches into the side yard, we're requesting, in one case, on the north side, 9 additional inches, and on the south side, approximately 6 additional inches. This, again, will help us accomplish that. I would like to note that the projection does not occur at grade. It occurs above at the second level, which is approximately 11, I believe it's 11 and a half feet or so. The second variation pertains to the 2 stairs in the upper right hand, which is 1N and 7S, 7 south and 1 north. In that particular case, and I'm going to have to submit another exhibit here just for clarification. This is the biggest culprit of the concerns, because not only does it have a 8-inch rise, 8.5-inch rise, and an 8-inch tread, it also is somewhat of a winder. It's a very dangerous stair in itself. In this particular instance, and I could again, this is taped to the board here, but I present this. This just shows what that stair looked like beforehand. All right.
I'm going to note that I've received a cutout piece of paper in a circle labeled existing stair 1N 7S, which shows the winding staircase that sort of winds back on itself at some odd angles here. And I will mark this applicant exhibit B.
And in this particular case, we're removing that stair and part of the masonry wall and installing a brand new stair, brand new wooden stair, which In this particular case, and in the only instance, we'll meet the current IBC, which would be a 11-inch tread and a 7-inch rise. The variation exception, notation on this is the existing roof that's there would need to be extended to the south, or excuse me, to the east in both cases to cover the additional amount of space to cover the stair.
All right, can you clarify where 7S is?
7S is in the upper left-hand corner.
With north,
7S on there. I think 7S is the opposite hand.
with north being up?
Yeah, one north. That's one north.
North is to the right.
Yeah.
So on this, north is to the right as well? Everything's oriented the same way?
No, you can't. In this,
I'm trying to fit this diagram into that drawing.
you can't see it, but if you look closely,
Okay.
there's a dashed line. There's a dashed line just above there.
Okay.
If you stand on a chair.
Nope, I see the diagonal. Okay.
That's the existing stair.
Okay.
Sheet number 1 indicates that the upper left is 7S.
Correct. The drawing that you have is for one north.
Right. Okay, so you're taking out all the diagonal masonry?
That's correct.
And the masonry
And the-
across the bottom?
That's
And you're
correct.
making it a simple switchback stair versus this
Correct.
triangular stair?
Correct.
Okay, and you have to do that because you can't get it to work? You can't get
No.
3
Again,
foot,
that-
3 foot widths, 10-inch runs, 7.5-inch rise to work in that? Okay.
That's correct.
And so what happens to the roof there? What are you doing there?
So in that particular case, the roof, because the stair is going to actually extend a little bit further to the east, we'd
Yeah.
like to extend the roof to cover that stair a little bit.
To cover the landing?
Correct.
Okay, so you don't want just the stair covered, you're actually looking to take it all the way out to the landing, which is like another 3.5 feet-ish.
I'm going to say this probably a little bit more than that. It's probably about 4, maybe 4.5 feet.
Okay. Is it getting wider as well at the very top?
No, no.
Okay, so it's not projecting,
It's not
if
projecting
north,
any
if north
further.
is to the right, it's not projecting any further north there?
That's correct.
It-
North, south.
Okay. It's only going to the east?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. The third variation has to do with the, at the east elevation, which is a stair at the bottom of the screen, which is along the alley. Again, the same condition. We have a very short tread, high rise, and in this case, it requires us to extend a landing out to the east side of the property, just short of the existing property line, to accommodate a landing and add an additional 2 steps so that we can, again, get that 7-inch rise, 7.5-inch rise and 10-inch tread. With that same stair, because the stair is actually coming out, the stair landing is coming out past the building, we're going to install an 8-foot-high wrought iron fence for security purposes to keep people off the stair that don't belong there.
Am I seeing it correctly that because that now is in the alley, that those 3 risers up and that landing, that first landing, that's all concrete?
Correct.
Am I reading your drawing correctly?
Correct.
And then from that point up, that'll all go back to wood?
Wood stairs.
And that there is no roof over that projection east? That concrete?
No. The only additional roof would be at the stairs to the north, and then we do show an eyebrow on the 2 center stairs at the top, and that, I believe, is on the elevation drawing.
Where's that eyebrow?
Which is sheet 3. It shows on the elevation.
So may I just ask, why do you need the wrought iron fence that's essentially attached to the building to be 8 feet rather than the 6 feet, which is allowed?
Well, the concern is someone will be able to climb over a 6-foot fence.
Isn't that kind of a concern everywhere that 6 feet fences exist in Evanston?
I suppose, but again, it's a deterrent. I understand that, but I think they currently have an 8-foot fence on the property, and he's keeping trying to stay consistent with it.
So the proposal for the fence, is that just around that part of the property that juts out to the east?
Yes. I have another exhibit, if I could, just an enlarged detail of elevation of that drawing,
Okay.
showing the fence and then the gate.
What are your fences, what are the gates in your gangways on either side? What are the heights of those?
On the side?
On the north and south of the building, right? You have to have fences there, gates.
Yes, we do.
Before you answer that, let me just get this entered as Exhibit C. And this, for the record, is sheet number 5.1, which shows an enlargement of the stairwell in the east elevation, which is the location of the requested 8-foot security fence. So I'll pass that along.
To answer the board member's question, I'm being told that there is a 7-foot high fence at the north and south sides of the building, gangways, on both sides, on the east side as well as the west side.
And the one in the alley is, how tall is it now?
7 feet, I was told.
That's 7 feet as
Yeah.
well. Also, it's like, just like the one in the alley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's already.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I have another exhibit if you'd like me to present. It's a photograph of that gate that's currently there. It's completely gated over the opening, which is approximately, I believe, about 11 feet high. So there's an existing 11-foot high fence that's on the back of the building currently.
It looks much taller than 8 feet. Yeah.
I'm going to take this and make this Exhibit
Sorry,
D?
I just want to, going back to the exhibit you just marked before
Yeah.
we put it away, I think we marked it as C.
Yes.
So it indicates that there's a secured top on the fenced-in location. Can you describe what that is?
On that projection on the east side.
Through the alley.
I think you've essentially made a cage, but we need confirmation.
Is the extension above the transom above the door.
No, on the east side. I don't know. Oh, this here?
I believe that's what that is, yeah.
There's just an extension along the top of the gate, so we don't have a full 8-foot high swinging gate.
No,
It
can I
says
have,
secured top on the
can I have the exhibit back and I'll show you what I'm talking about? Because it seems to me like you're putting a roof on it, a roof
I don't know
that's
that that's-
caged. So it's essentially a cage, so somebody can't get up and over. So I just want to be clear that that's what we're talking about.
It says
Right.
enclosure with secured top.
Oh, I think, you know what? I think she's referring to this secured, like, fixed top. There's no top on top.
There's no top on that, so that
There'll
doesn't,
be no top on it. I think the reference is to that transom piece along the top.
okay. So you're calling that a top, but that's not actually horizontal, that's a vertical, that's not sloping, it's not
No,
anything like that,
no,
it's not
straight across the
foreshortened,
top. Right.
Okay.
So before we move on, I do want to get applicant exhibit number D. Since this is a photograph, I'm going to ask, did you take this photograph?
Yes.
And when was it taken approximately?
I'm going to say probably last year, sometime in September.
Okay. And do the conditions that currently exist still look the same as they did last September?
Yes.
Thank you.
So I saw a note on one of your plans that said, we can't get, it's on sheet 4. Due to the existing masonry and door configuration, the maximum tread is 9 inches. That's not in an area where a variance is being requested.
We just have all the drawings together for the entire submittal, but no, there's no variation requested for that particular stair. In that particular instance, incidentally, there's a steam line that runs through there. It's without redoing the mechanical system for the building. We can't revise that stair.
Okay.
So are you familiar with the zoning requirements for granting a major variation?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so can you please describe what the hardship is that's causing this situation that's peculiar to the property?
Well, again, the concern has been safety and the safety of the residents in the building. The hardship, I think, more is for the residents in the building having to navigate that stairwell. I can appreciate ownership's responsibility to try and do the right thing in this particular case, particularly on our recommendations and approach. I think the hardship for the owner is to have to, continually maintain a stair that, in my opinion, is in pretty poor condition design-wise, and having the opportunity to be able to improve upon it with this revision, with this variation, would be the hardship if we weren't able to get it.
I just want to clarify a question or a comment that was made at Dapper. The proposed gate that's going in the back is to be a wrought iron gate, you said?
Correct.
It is not a chain link.
Correct.
Okay.
I have a question about drawing number 5, sheet number 5, drawing 4, stairwell for east elevation, right? So that's that whole 8-foot fence that we're talking about. I guess my concern with that is that regardless of how high you've made it, if I'm a ne'er-do-well, I can still jump up onto that handrail, and now I can get over it, regardless of the 8 feet, right? Because now I'm only 3.5 feet. I can easily, monkey my way up. So does it make sense to just put a lid on that?
Well, there's all ways. There's lots of different ways to keep someone from climbing over the top of a fence. They could pick at the top of that fence as well, and it'll help deter anyone from doing it. But, in this particular case, I think anytime someone tries to go into a space they're supposed to be in, and you see someone climbing up on top of a fence, or, you will see that. And I think someone trying to jump over an 8-foot, make it more difficult getting over an 8-foot high fence, the chances are someone's going to possibly see them doing that and take the appropriate action. Everything we're trying to do is just in this particular case is a deterrent.
Are there additional questions for Mr. Senka? Not seeing any. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak to us? Not seeing anybody in the room. I will ask Mr. Senka if you would just like to make any final closing statement.
I don't think, at this point, I just would like to stress the need for improvements to the stairs at this building. Rather than replace the wooden stairs in the existing condition that they're in now, it would certainly help the residents in this building, particularly older residents, to be able to navigate these stairs safely because of their usage, and they get used quite a bit. And I'd like to thank the board for hearing the case this evening and the chairman as well. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we will close the record and begin our deliberations. General comments from the board?
I would urge that we consider the setback variations separately from the fence variations, because I at least feel differently about them. To the extent that one accepts that there is a hardship peculiar to the property with respect to how the stairs are constructed and need to be reconstructed safely, I can maybe see that. However, I feel with respect to the fence variation that it's been stated that it's a deterrent, which is not, to me, a hardship peculiar to the property, and I am not in favor of the fence variation.
I'd be more than happy to consider that if anyone else wants to. For me, the particular instance that's being created, since this is a similar building to the one that I live in, where the back stairs kind of dead end into these gates, which go up to basically seal off, in most cases, as exhibited in the picture, applicant number D, to sort of make a more secure stairwell. The fact that by moving those stairs out, you're losing the ability to entirely close that off unless, as was suggested, we build a cage on the back. I feel that the steps do create somewhat of a situation for the fence, but I'm happy to consider them either separately or together.
Can we actually see that exhibit? We haven't seen it down
Oh,
here.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just think that you can have a deterrent security fence without having to seek a variation for it, is how I feel. And that's not a hardship peculiar to the property that necessitates it.
I happen to, in this case, agree with Matt. I think that making the stairs more code compliant and easier and safer to use is of utmost importance. And I think that variances that support that goal are worthwhile. And I do believe that by putting that landing, by having to move that landing out into the alley, it does create a different level of security issue. I know that I would prefer, if I was going up and down that stair, I would prefer a taller gate. I've lived in buildings like this as well, and I prefer that added security.
So should all Evanstonians be allowed to put an 8-foot fence around their property line because it's a deterrent and more secure?
I think that there is a difference between being multifamily and single family. And I think the multifamily in an alley is a prime target for those sorts of things. And I think I think in this case it is, it's almost an attractive nuisance, for lack of a better term. It's an easy way in, and you've got people cornered. So, no, I don't think everybody should get to build an 8-foot fence in the name of security. But I also think that this has a higher risk level than the average piece of property.
I think I'd agree just because of the type of housing and the location off an alley. I would agree with what you're stating.
Scott, are you asking that it be considered, the fence be considered in a separate, is that what you're asking?
Yes. I mean, they're seeking two types of variations, and I'm just suggesting we consider them separately for purposes of analyzing the factors.
Because this fence issue, it does seem to be a problem. How many apartments in the building? How many people use this? 41.
Yeah, there's a number.
So a lot of people.
But how many off that particular alley? I mean, we're only talking about 8 feet at that spot, right? Or are we talking about 8 feet at the north and south gangways? You're
we're
not
only-
changing the
we're-
north and south
No,
gangways.
we're only talking about
It's
around
just
that outcrop.
that projection, that weird
we're-
projection.
That we're putting into the alley.
Right.
It's not along the entire back
Right,
of the property line.
right.
What I will do is I will go through standards and I will try to address both issues as we go through standards. And then if we want to make separate motions, I'm fine with that. But we will kind of go through the standards together because I think some of the things will kind of overlap in the standards, if that's fine with everyone.
Sounds great.
Number one, the requested variation will not have a substantial adverse impact on the use, enjoyment, or property values of adjoining properties. We are projecting somewhat into existing side yards, but because of the type of property that we're looking at, which is a multifamily and an R5, being surrounded by other R5s, I think we are in a slightly different situation than if we were abutting up against single-family homes. And we, again, have noticed, and no one has come to tell us that their properties will be impacted greatly by the addition of some side yard setbacks in order to accommodate the request. So I believe standard number one is met. Number two, the requested variation is in keeping with the intent of the zoning ordinance. Obviously, whenever we have an opportunity to bring an existing building into compliance with our building code, especially when it is issues of safety, which these particular stairs, we have heard testimony that they are drastically off from what is acceptable under today's building code. I would say that we definitely want to try to accommodate as necessary those requests, so I believe standard number two has been met. Number three, the alleged hardship or practical difficulty is peculiar to the property. These are existing stairwells which are kind of enveloped within a masonry building. We have heard some testimony that there will be some changes to the masonry in order to try to make some of the triangular stairways a little more navigable by people living in the building, which creates one of our issues. And obviously, the fact that we're trying to build within that envelope causes the new stairwell to protrude a little further into the side yards. Is definitely something that would be expected. So I believe standard number three is met. Number four, the property owner would suffer a particular hardship or practical difficulty as distinguished from a mere inconvenience if the strict letter of the regulations were to be carried out. This is one where I think we're going to have a little bit of separate discussion. It is my feeling that obviously trying to bring a building to have stairways that are safer for residents is something that we would identify as not merely an inconvenience. Obviously, people have been using these stairways, but we definitely want to try to make them as safe as possible. There has been some discussion about the need for the fence on the rear of the property and whether that is something that is identified as a true hardship for the property. If I'm understanding you correctly, you're kind of staring at me.
Yes, I don't think the desire to have a deterrent fence on the property is a hardship peculiar to the property that necessitates a variation or justifies one.
Okay. I feel that this standard has been met. Mr. Gingold does not feel that it has been met on the fence issue, but I believe he does feel it has been met on the stair issue.
I'm willing to go there.
Okay. Anyone else have a similar feeling on the on separating the stairwell from the fence in this particular issue? Again, we will make two separate motions if that's what's requested. But I believe the standard has been met. Number 5, the purpose of the variation is not based exclusively upon a desire to extract additional income from the property. Obviously, the desire here is to create a safer egress from the rear of these apartments as opposed to trying to do anything that would create additional income for the property owners. So I believe standard number 5 is met. Number 6, the alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having an interest in the property. This building has been built, testimony was provided about 80 years ago. It's probably the original stair plan that has been in that condition for 80 years. And so I believe that this standard has been met. And number 7, the requested variation requires the least deviation from the applicable regulation among the feasible options identified before the Zoning Board of Appeals. Again, this is one where we may have some split on the fence issue, separating from the stairway issue. Obviously, on the stairway issue, the architect has tried to bring us closer, but still was not able to even get us to the code that they would like, which would be the 7 rise over 11 tread. But they have been able to at least make the stairway somewhat safer by getting us closer to that. And so I believe that that standard has been met on the stairway. In terms of the gate at the rear of the property, I believe that that has also been met in the fact that it is providing that necessary deterrent and is not, because of the fact that we aren't looking to enclose the entire back of the property or anything like that, but merely around that stairway, I believe that that is the least deviation from the regulations.
I will disagree with respect to the fence in that to the extent the fence is meant to serve as a deterrent, there's been testimony and evidence submitted that the other stairways are protected by 7-foot high fences rather than the 8 feet sought for this fence, and therefore it's most definitely not the minimum variation necessary.
That will be noted. This is where I ask if everyone agrees with my findings of standards. I know Scott will not agree with them for the reasons that he has stated. Does everyone else agree with my findings of standards?
Yes.
Yes.
So with that, I will ask if we want to make 2 motions. The first one would be for all of the yard setbacks, the balconies, the stairwells, and then we will ask for a second motion on the fence.
Why are we doing that? Why don't we just make it 1?
I think you can, with
I
with 5 in agreement,
I just wanted to make sure if you wanted it separate, we gave it to you.
No, I'll
so.
just vote down the motion, but
Okay.
it seems like you have 5 votes.
I didn't know if you wanted to vote in favor of one and in opposition of another. So with that, is there a motion for approval of all requested zoning relief for 605 Hinman?
Nobody wants to do this one? Oh, I got to go back to the cover page. Sorry. I'll get there any day now. All right, so in the ZBA matter 15ZMJV-0004, I move that we approve the, do I have to be specific about what the setbacks are? Or can I just say the setbacks as noticed?
You can say the setbacks as noticed.
The setbacks as noticed and the fence as noticed. I always forget. Contingent that the drawing, that the property be developed in substantial compliance with the drawings and testimony presented tonight.
One thing we do have to notice that staff just pointed out to me is we are increasing building lot coverage from 57.5% to 58% because of the where we are jutting out around various parts of the building.
I amend that motion to include approval of the change in building lot coverage per the notice.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approval of 605 Hinman? Aye.
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 All opposed?
Nay.
By a vote of 5-1, the motion carries, and the project is approved. So good luck with your project, and you can work with Melissa, but you're not Melissa, with Lori in the zoning department to move forward with it. And with that, I will note for the record that I believe our applicant for 517 Dempster has arrived. And so we will go ahead and hear our third case of this evening. If you would please read that case into the record.
Sebastian Kazura, lessee, applies for a special use permit for a Type 2 restaurant, Frio Gelato, at 517 Dempster Street. 517 Dempster Street is located in the B1 Business District, which requires a special use permit for a Type 2 restaurant to operate. Zoning Code Section 6923. The Zoning Board of Appeals makes a recommendation to City Council, the determining body for the case. Documents for the record include special use application dated January 10th, 2015, standards form, plat of survey, site plan, image of property, aerial view of property, zoning map of property, DAPR meeting minutes dated January 21st, 2015, and a new item received since the packet was distributed, a letter of support from a neighboring property owner.
Thank you. At this point, if I could have anyone who may speak to us in the matter of 517 Dempster be sworn by raising your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth throughout the course of these proceedings?
I swear.
Thank you. And if you would please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Sebastian Kosura, and I live in 2714 Reese, Evanston, Illinois, 60201.
Thank you. And if you would please tell us about your proposal.
We are planning to open our second retail location in Evanston. This is going to be purely retail. We're not going to have any manufacturing there. We're going to keep the manufacturing plant or kitchen at 1701 Simpson. So basically, we're going to be scooping out gelato from this store only. We're going to be open, we think now, from 10 in the morning to 10 at night, Monday through Monday. And we'll have probably 2 employees at a time. And that's pretty much it.
So where do you anticipate your 2 employees will park? That's always the big question on these.
We rented 1 parking space behind the building. There is a parking lot. So we rented 1 parking space in there, right behind our retail store.
And what about the second employee?
The employees most likely are not going to have cars.
So these are people
one of them-
you haven't hired yet, or people you have hired?
We already have hired them.
Okay.
They've been working with us last year.
Okay. So how will the other employee get to work?
Bicycle. One is my daughter. And then the other employee, he either takes the bus or bicycle as well.
Okay. And are you, assuming we're willing to grant the special use request, are you willing to a condition that the employees not be permitted to use the street parking?
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe, so obviously we've seen you before and I think we're familiar. You make the gelato on a different location.
Mm-hmm.
Is the gelato the only thing that will be sold in the store?
At the beginning, yes.
Okay.
That's the only thing we are planning for
And
right now.
when you say at the beginning, what else might you add?
We might add coffee and pastries also from Argentina.
And do you make those or do you plan to have
No.
them supplied?
Supply it.
Okay, so can you describe what your plan is for deliveries?
Basically, we're going to have 1 parking space available all the time, either for our truck who's going to be bringing the gelato from 1701 Simpson or from this vendor in the future if we do it.
The parking space is the one behind the building that
Correct.
you've leased?
Correct.
How frequently do you anticipate needing to deliver yourself gelato from the manufacturing location?
We are planning probably once a day.
And what's the quantity? What kind of truck is going to deliver that, or is
We
it?
have a Ford Transit. The Transit Connect is like a small utility.
It's like a minivan, right?
So
A
it
little
can
bigger
fit-
than a minivan.
even smaller than a minivan.
Okay.
It's the
So it can
smaller-
fit in your parking space?
Say it again?
It will be able to fit in your parking
Oh, yeah,
space.
yeah, absolutely. It's like smaller than a compact car.
I have a couple questions about your business. So I know you're over on Simpson, and don't you scoop out of that store as well?
Yes.
Okay, and I think I saw you in a couple of other stores like Coffee Lab, like.
Yes.
So do you sell at a few locations like that?
Correct.
And so this one over here on Dempster, you're going to have like the retail come by and just buy it. Are you going to have a sidewalk component? Is there sitting
No.
down in the restaurant? Nothing like that?
No.
Nothing like that. Just come get it and go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just
Well,
like-
there's some seating because he's putting in a built-in bench.
Yeah.
So he
the
wants you
bench-
to,
yeah.
to have a seat.
Yeah. He has a seat on Simpson.
Right.
How's that going?
It's
The
going
seat,
really well.
Like where people are coming by and they're buying from you there. Yeah. Yeah. 'Cause
Like in the
that's-
summer, we put it outside sometimes.
I've seen
and then
you.
people sitting there.
Yeah.
We probably is going to be the same thing on Dempster.
Like the same type
Mm-hmm.
of thing. Okay.
And obviously, since you were just here less than a year ago, I believe.
I think it was like February last year.
Okay, so about a year. You are familiar with our litter collection plan about picking up any trash within 250 feet of the property. I am assuming because of the fact that this is just a retail operation and will not be wholesale, that you'll be using a dumpster out in the parking lot in the alley behind your building?
Not even. We're going to be taking our trash back to Simpson, where we have a,
Oh, okay.
a dumpster.
Okay,
Because there is not even room for one more dumpster in there.
okay. We
And
covered.
the only disposal of the garbage that we're going to have is just the empty cups that people and spoons that people leave there. All the gelato that we deliver in containers that we wash and then we bring back to the other location.
So you're not doing anything like drinks or a cooler full of drinks or bottled water, nothing?
No,
Get your gelato and get out.
we are trying to keep it as simple as possible.
Okay.
I mean, we're going to have a fountain, like a water fountain,
You'll have a drinking fountain.
Right.
Okay.
but not
Yeah,
bottles.
but you're not doing bottles. Okay.
No, no, no,
So you really don't have any delivery.
no.
Interesting.
And the only exterior that you're planning to do is just update an awning,
Just replace
possibly
the
a
awning with
small
the
sign, something like that.
just the awning is going to have the name of the company, and then it's going to be a different color
Okay.
with the color of the company.
And I saw this in our notes, but I will just ask staff for the record, we have not received any complaints of his current operation.
No, we have not.
Thank you. Are there additional questions for Mr. Kazura? Hearing none, is there anything you'd like to say in summation?
No, I hope it works
All right.
the same or better than in Simpson.
All right, thank you. With that, we will go ahead and close our record. I will note for the record that there is no one else in the room, so I'm not going to ask if there's anybody else who wanted to speak to us. We do, since we will be making a recommendation to City Council, we do have our standards for a special use that we must follow. So we will go through those. The first one being the special use is one of the special uses specifically listed in the zoning ordinance. In a B1 district, we do find that a type 2 restaurant is one of the permitted special uses, and so that standard has been met. Number 2, it is in keeping with the purposes and policies of the adopted comprehensive general plan, and the zoning ordinance is amended from time to time. We again are in a B1 district, and I know there has been recent push by the city in order to try to bring retail establishments into our B1, try not to have offices and less traffic generating types of businesses in the B1. So I believe that putting a type 2 restaurant, which really is a small retail establishment of sorts in at 517 Dempster is in keeping with that. So standard number 2 is met. Number 3, it will not cause a negative cumulative effect when its effect is considered in conjunction with all the cumulative effects of various special uses of all types on the immediate neighborhood. This operation sounds like it's going to have a very minimal effect. Everything will kind of be trucked in and trucked out by a very small truck. So most of the neighbors should not notice any large change in or impact in their neighborhood, with the exception of hopefully additional customers walking to and from the business or riding their bikes to and from the business. So I believe standard number 3 has been met. Number 4, it does not interfere with or diminish the value of property in the neighborhood. It's kind of going to what I just mentioned. We should notice a very small impact, if any, on the day-to-day lives of people in the neighborhood, with the exception, hopefully, of additional foot traffic and or other retail customers coming in to purchase gelato. So standard number 4 has been met. Number 5, it can be adequately served by public facilities and services. Again, since this is a type 2 restaurant that we're looking at, it's kind of barely a type 2 restaurant. It should not have any major change to any of the facilities or services of the building. It should not cause any undue tax on the building or the facilities. So that standard has been met. Number 6, it does not cause undue traffic congestion. The fact that one of the things we usually talk about in these cases is deliveries. All the deliveries will come through the rear of the building, through a parking lot on the rear. The fact that we aren't expecting to have anybody blocking traffic to come in and get anything. So I believe that the traffic congestion should be at a minimum, if any different. So standard number 6 is met. Number 7, it preserves significant historical or architectural resources. We have had testimony that the only proposed change to the exterior of the building is to update an awning with the name of the operation. And so that should be a minimal impact. So standard number 7 is met. Number 8, it preserves significant natural and environmental features. There is no testimony that we will be making any proposed changes to the footprint of the building or in any way impacting the environment around the building. So standard number 8 is met. And number 9, it complies with all other applicable regulations of the district in which it is located and other applicable ordinances. The owner currently operates a similar establishment in town and is familiar with any of the regulations that go with operating such a business. And we have not heard that there have been any complaints against his business, and that he seems to be a person in good standing with the city in terms of his business. So I have no reason to believe that anything that needs to be done to make this happen would not be complied with. So I believe standard number 9 has also been met. Is everyone in agreement with my findings?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
With that, I will ask if there is a motion, again reminding that we are a recommending body to City Council on this case.
I'll move in the matter ZBA 15 ZMJV-0005 that we recommend that City Council approve the special use requested with the following conditions. Sorry, I don't think we arrived at what the hours of operation ought to be. I know he requested 10 to 10, but what's the range for that district that we would typically grant?
In a lot of the B1s, we allow people to stay open till 11. Opening time could be as early as 6 a.m. I mean, I'm fine with the 6 to 11.
I'd say 6 to 11, again, because if he eventually gets to coffee and pastry, that would be nice to be able to open that early.
Right.
So we wouldn't be saying that's when you have to operate. That's the range in which you'd be permitted to operate. Okay, so the conditions being that the hours of operation be limited from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. 7 days a week. That employees be prohibited from utilizing street parking while working, and the owner comply with the city's litter collection and garbage pickup plans, and that the property otherwise be developed in compliance with the documents and testimony submitted.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By a vote of 6-0, it will go to City Council with a recommendation for approval, and staff will let you know when you'll appear before council for your case there. Thank you, and good luck with your project. With that, is there any, we have concluded the business before us. Are there any other topics for discussion?
No, I move we adjourn.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 We stand adjourned until our next meeting, which will be
March 3rd, actually, the next meeting of February 17th is canceled.
on March 3rd here in City Council chambers.
Okay. Have you ever seen these guys?